Today's story is about my grandmother, Rhoda. Um, my grandmother, Rhoda, was, she was from Nova Scotia. And I never really knew her very well because, we visited regularly. We would go to Maine and visit with her and my grandfather in Bar Harbor. And I would find my memories of her are often in the kitchen, which is why I'm in the kitchen. And I really remember that she used to make this cake. And it would be, she would have it under, on a cake plate, on a cake stand with a cover. And sometimes we would get a piece of cake, but it was only at certain times. And sometimes she would help me make the cakes, and she would have something like a Duncan Hines or a Betty Crocker mix. And then she said, well, the secret is that you put chocolate pudding in. And so we would do the whole thing with the mixing bowl, and then she would make like a bundt cake so that it had these, this nice design. And then yeah, she would keep it on the counter. So she would keep it, it would be there. It would be over there, tantalizing us underneath the top. And we would only get a slice. I don't even remember when we were able to have a slice, but um, I think of her as a homemaker. I almost put on an apron, but it didn't really work for where I am. So, uh, but part of her story that I was told is that at age 7, she was sent away to boarding school for all of her years of school. So she was sent away to a girls' boarding school. And I imagine it being, pretty kind of she was in that was her world. She left home at 7 and went away. And, it was all about going off to do her studies. And when she was away, she realized how much she loved classical music. She was a pianist. She always played the piano, and her dream was was to do music in her life. And she was a lady who she always had, she'd done the curls in her hair. She had the curlers she would put in, and then she had this sort of cute little hairdo that kind of went to here, just so. And but she had a fiery temperament. And the way that I knew this is sometimes, if the kids got to be too much, if we were being too rowdy or something, she would click her tongue and she would say, now, come on, girls, come on. Or she'd say, oh dear. She would sort of, you could feel this sort of under pressure, she's going to blow feeling. And that's because she had this passion inside of her, this temperament. She had a lot of emotion inside of her, but I don't think it had really anywhere to go. She did have it with her music. And so I know that she was very passionate about that. But just as she was preparing to go off to study music formally, after high school, her mother got sick. And so she was asked to come home and take care of her mother and essentially not go to school, not follow her dream, not follow her passion, and but to nurse her mom. And after that, I don't know exactly like how long her mom lived or what happened there, but I do know that she met my grandfather, and he was a serious, quiet man. He was a scientist with a long, promising career in front of him. He was a genetic scientist, and he built a laboratory, and she became, his wife and mother to 3 boys. And so her life became about making the bundt cake, and slicing it just so, and cooking his breakfast just how he liked it. It was very specific because he had a lot of dietary issues. And so she served, she kept a beautiful home. It had this mahogany banister, and it had beautiful gardens outside. It was just a very pretty home. And they kept up, appearances. I still remember my grandfather's tweed hat and, their sort of whole, the way that they kept up the appearance of their life, and how she had to sort of constantly and permanently repress who she really wanted to be in the world, because in those days that wasn't what women did. And I'll never forget one of my last memories of visiting with her. I was probably about 15, and she'd come to visit me in the town that my family was in. And we'd gone somewhere to an exhibit or something. We were sitting, it was kind of like winter or spring. It was kind of cold, and she had her tweed wool coat and her hat, and we were sitting on a bench outside. And she said, I remember I had asked her, or I was trying to place her in time. I probably asked her age, and she was like, "Oh, I'm old. I'm very, very old." And I was like, I mean, she couldn't have been, I don't know, but she might have been 50. But anyway, and she said to me, and again, this is this New England stiff, not very openly affectionate kind of culture that I was raised in. But she reached over, and there was this emotional moment where she like patted my hand. She said, "Ah, dear." She said, "Don't ever let go of your art. You must keep your art." And I could just feel her. It was such a special message. Just, it was a message from the artist in her to the artist in me, and came after sacrificing her life so that her husband could have the life that he wanted and her children could have the life that they wanted. And she played that supporting role, and her mother was taken care of, right? So I guess in those days, you couldn't really recoup a loss like that. I don't know if she had gotten into music school, and then had to turn it down. My memory is that she had gotten a scholarship, and she was, but it was not to be. And then years later, her giving me that message in this just quiet, intense way, uh, it was really very special. Yeah. So I've inherited her love of baking cakes. I don't know if she ever loved baking cakes, though. I think she just was very proficient. And I think the message of the story is less about um, nurturing others and baking cakes, and it's more about not letting go of the dream.